Welcome to Al Arabiya English exclusive interview with the European Union High Representative, Mr. Borrell. Thank you for the opportunity. My first question is, of course, on Gaza war. In its 10th month now, the Israeli government doesn't listen to the international calls for a ceasefire, ignores the international ICG rules. How European Union is looking to what's going on, because a genocide is ongoing.
We, from the first day, we have both condemned the terrorist attack done by Hamas, because killing civilians is a terrorist act, but also condemned the disproportionate way that Israel is performing the war in Gaza and the too high level of civilian casualties. The number is unbearable. We are putting all the pressure possible for Israel to stop it, support the Biden plan from the beginning, asking for a ceasefire as the first step in order to release the hostages, increase humanitarian support, end this war, and stop the killing. Every day, more casualties. As I said, this is unbearable. We don't believe that it is according with international law, and certainly civilians are not being protected by the way Israel is performing its right to defense.
But who can stop this war?
Only the ones who do war can stop the war. Both parts can stop the war.
You mean the Israeli government?
Yes, certainly, but it doesn't seem that they are very much eager to do that. And take care with the situation in the West Bank, which is also very worrisome, where the violence of shelters. Yesterday, here at the European Union, we condemn a group of violent shelters for their activities against the Palestinian people and against the convoy of humanitarian support going through the Jordanian corridor. And take care with the situation in the Lebanese border. The war can spill over on the region, bringing still a big, much dangerous dynamics.
I want to go back for one question about in the few weeks or months in the beginning, we understood the lack of coherence among the member states, but also among the members of the European Commission, having Madam President von der Leyen and Mr. Oliver Verhali, the Commissioner for Neighborhood, on one side, and on the other side we found High Representative Borrell. Why this lack of coherence regarding the war?
Look, from the day one, we have been condemning the terrorist attack by Hamas, because as I said before, to kill civilians, innocent civilians, is a terrorist act. To take and kidnap people and to use them as a bargaining chip, it's against also international law. But from the first day, we condemn also the high level of civilians being killed in Gaza by the military operations. It may have had different accents, but the message of the European Union is clear. International law has to be respected, humanitarian law has to be respected, and the military operations has to be in accordance with that. From my understanding, this is not the case. The high level of civilian casualties, the number of UNRWA facilities being destroyed, the figures that Lazarine was saying yesterday about how many employees of UNRWA have been killed, how many premises have been destroyed, how many of them have been suffering attacks, how many displaced people have been killed when we are looking for shelter in the United Nations premises. All that is something that the European Union, we have been condemning, and we have been condemning also the expansion of the shelters of the colonies in the West Bank. You cannot say that we have not been putting our accent on trying to defend innocent people on both sides.
Few member states of the European Union are directly involved in a way in this war, because they are providing Israel with armament and ammunition, and these countries like France, United Kingdom out of the European Union, Germany, other countries are providing armament to Israel, and it could be questioned one day by the international tribunals.
Look, the trade of arms is a national competence. I am representing the European Union and I am powerless because trade arms is a national competence. Export of arms, each country decides to whom to export and to what and for what. So yes, there are member states who are providing arms to Israel. It has been always like this. They continue doing that, but there is nothing I can do about it because I don't have the capacity of doing that.
But you manage at least to overcome some difficulties inside or among member states when it comes to sanctioning the extremists or convening the association or attempt to at least to convene the association council. How did you manage to overcome these difficulties and division among member states?
It's not always easy. We have been very much united in front of the Russian aggression against Ukraine. Unhappily, we have not been united in a position with respect to the war in Gaza. You know very well that then when time comes to vote in the United Nations, many vote in favor of ceasefire, others vote against, others abstain. I think we have been divided in several occasions. Some recognize the Palestinian Authority as a state, others still don't do it. All of us, we are united on supporting the idea of a two-state solution, but I think more has to be done in order to make this idea a reality. Now there is an agreement among member states in order to call for an association council meeting with Israel. And I hope we will be able to arrange a date with Israeli Netanyahu's government and to agree on an agenda and to agree on a common position from member states. And certainly if this association council takes place, it will have to deal also with the war in Gaza and the situation in the West Bank. Some member states have been requesting to the Commission, to the President of the Commission, directly to hold this meeting in order to analyze from the eyes of our strong partnership with Israel how things are happening in Gaza, how things are happening in the West Bank, and which are the prospects for peace and looking for the two-state solution that I know Netanyahu government doesn't want at all.
Among the other, let's say, differentiation or conflicting issues between member states was the issue of recognition of the state of Palestine. We have 4 countries. Fortunately, they did, Spain, Ireland, Sweden, and Norway out of the European Union. What is your own approach?
There are other members of the European Union who recognized the state of Palestine many years ago when they were part of the Soviet bloc. Maybe they have forgotten about it, but they did, and they still are recognizing the state of Palestine.
Your own approach, is this helpful? Would you encourage countries to do it? Because as many Arab countries are asking for, do you consider it could be a helpful initiative, a helpful gesture from those countries who are recognizing now state of Palestine or considering it?
Well, as I said, inside the European Union, I have different views. Some member states said this is a political decision. They will push for the two-state solution. This is a confirmation of our will to get this goal, so let's do it now. Others believe it is not the moment to do that. It can maybe be even counterproductive. It can react. It can trigger reaction from the Israeli government, as it happened. Because the other day they took some pieces of land, some outposts, and they justified that saying we will take one outpost for every country who recognizes the Palestinian Authority, which is something which certainly has nothing to do, goes against the interests of the Palestinian people and goes against the international law, because this land, according with international law, is an occupied territory by a military power that cannot confiscate this law, and we have been condemning. And at the G7 meeting in Washington the other day, all of us issued another statement condemning this eviction, seizing land, and asked the Israeli government to rewind this kind of attitude.
And the European Union has always a constant position, not recognizing the annexation, not recognizing the sovereignty of Israel on the West Bank, including Jerusalem East.
That's the United Nations resolution. We agree by United Nations resolution. Long time ago, this resolution has been saying that the West Bank is an occupied land as a result of a war, and this is not part of the State of Israel inside the internationally recognized borders. But today, one minister of the Netanyahu government has been saying openly and inviting Netanyahu, take this land. It belongs to us. Seize the West Bank. This is against international law. This is against what we defend. And this is one of the reasons why the situation in the West Bank is so bad, and we have to condemn and react against kind of attitudes.
Mr. Borrell, the Arab countries presented to you, to European Union, to United States, to United Nations, other partners, a proper peace roadmap, a practical one. I have it here. Which could be implemented anytime if there is a goodwill from the other side, let's say from the Israeli side. And it's dealing with all issues from the ceasefire until the establishment of the Palestinian state and the security regional mechanism. How yourself, your European colleagues among the Foreign Affairs Minister Council appreciated the Arab document?
I've been discussing many times with my Arab colleagues from Jordan to Saudi Arabia to Egypt to Qatar and Emirates about this proposal. I invited them to come to the Foreign Affairs Council here in Brussels to explain these plans to my colleagues of the 27 member states. I think this plan is an important contribution to look for peace. But as you said, what is lacking is will. And when I'm hearing the Netanyahu government saying that never, ever they will accept a Palestinian state, and Netanyahu himself presents him as being the stronger wall, the biggest wall against the building of the two-state solution, I see that the problem is not the lack of plans, it's lack of will. And that's what the international community has to face. And we have to mobilize our diplomatic capacity in order to push all actors, in order to first get a ceasefire. Second, release the hostages. Well, both things have to go together. Third, increase humanitarian support for the people in need. Fourth, reform the Palestinian Authority. Fifth, ensure funding, avoiding Israel to cut the money that belongs to the Palestinians. And sixth, to look for a political solution. Otherwise, the cycle of violence will last forever, generation after generation, funerals after funerals, and all the seed of hate that this has been putting on the Gaza land, I am afraid they will last for many times. So my words are words of peace, are words of full respect. We have to recognize the existence of the State of Israel, and we have to fight for building the Palestinian state. Both has to live together in peace and security.
But how to move from a ceasefire, because a ceasefire there will be one day, to move from the ceasefire to the implementation of the two-state solutions?
It's going to be a long way. But the longest way is start with the first step. The longest way is start by a first step. And we started this way many years ago, 30 years ago with the Oslo Agreement. And happily, the Prime Minister of Israel who signed this agreement was killed. And then nothing happened. 30 years later, how many people are being killed? So we have to join forces of the Arab world, the Europeans, the US, all people of goodwill around the world, and use the United Nations capacity in order to develop a diplomatic effort. Because, you know, this is not going to resolve without a strong commitment of the international community and a strong political pressure on both actors, but mainly on the ones that today has more strength and uses military capacity. But the first step is to stop this war, to stop the killing of people, releasing the hostages, and to start talking about how we support people in need. And when I see from the satellite images, thousands of trucks queuing in one side of the border, full of food, and on the other side of the border, people starving, I cannot avoid to ask to myself, what is happening here? Who is responsible for doing that? I know humanitarian support is not coming into Gaza where people are starving and even the humanitarian actors being bombed. But who is guilty for that? Who is responsible for that? This is what the international community has to ask and to answer.
Do you feel that there is a kind of international moral failure in front of what's happening in Gaza?
It's a human failure. There's a humanity failure. And you know what bothers me is that it's becoming routine. At the beginning, 100 people being killed was a big news. Today, 300 people being killed, it's a smaller news. And tomorrow we are looking to another crisis and we will forget about what's happening there. No, we cannot forget. This is a great humanity failure. As the Director General of UNRWA says, we are losing our humanity. We are losing our humanity, we, all of us, in front of this tragedy. And this tragedy includes the hostages and the victims of the Hamas attacks. I'm not going to say it's white and black. Both sides have been committing violations of international law and committing acts of terrorism. But at that moment, what we should keep in mind is that every day the war, the bombing, the attacks involving civilians are taking a higher toll on human lives. Every day there is a delay on getting a ceasefire agreement is being paid by innocent lives. The humanity, we have to stop it.
I know that you are looking also closely to what's going on in the area of borders between Lebanon and Israel, plus that the European Union is more active, let's say, in the Red Sea via Aspides mission. Could you comment on your worry about the possible or the risks that the conflict can go beyond Palestine?
We live over a barrel of powder, and something can trigger a fire. I'm coming from the Red Sea. I was visiting our Navy ships, the European ships, trying to protect the traffic towards the Suez Canal under the fire of Houthis. And that's not a joke. 2 hours after I left the ship I was embarked on, the Houthis launched 2 rockets against him. And certainly they couldn't shut them down. But in some cases it's not happening. So yes, the Houthis are provoking a strong disturbance on the traffic, costing money and creating trouble. And certainly there is a link with Iran. Everybody knows that Iran and Houthis have a direct link. In Lebanon border, every day there is exchange of shooting and fire rockets with a lot of casualties and hundreds of thousands of people being displaced, and with a great risk of provoking an escalation. Remember how bloody were the wars in Lebanon. There is at least 3 wars in Lebanon. So we have to push in order to avoid another escalation, because then the whole region can become destabilized and the human cost will be certainly too high. But it is time to avoid this happening.
Your own mission as High Representative will come one day to an end, let's say next November.
I still have 3-4 months in office.
Yeah. How do you see the European Union posture, having in mind that the possibility of the return of Mr. Donald Trump to the White House and his new vice president, who is a very ideological man?
I think both Putin and Netanyahu are waiting for the result of the American elections. I think both are waiting for a change of leadership in the White House. I think President Biden has done a lot in order to try to get the ceasefire. Has done a lot in order to support Ukraine on their fight for independence in front of Russian aggression. I don't know what is going to happen with another president of the US, but it is to the American people to decide. We will cooperate loyally with any American administration elected democratically. Let the Americans decide, and from our side, let's build our capacity, European capacity, to become an actor in the world, being not all the time dependent on what the American will be.
Because Europe is today unable to have an impact on major crises. You had a real impact on Ukraine, but you did not have an impact on Gaza. This is
I have to recognize
European Union failed there.
I have to recognize that the lack of unity is one of the strongest weakness. Yeah. But allow me to say that, divided or not, we are the first supplier of financing to the Palestinian Authority. We are the biggest donor of humanitarian support. We have been mobilizing our financial support on humanitarian help to the people in Gaza. I know that humanitarian support is not everything, but it's important, because for the people who receive this support, it's a matter of life or death. So maybe we have different opinions about how to end with this conflict, but the whole European countries have been mobilized on trying to increase support and diminish the level of sufferances by the people in Gaza. That's a fact. It has to be recognized also.
My last question is about, let's say, a personal question. Is what is you consider biggest achievement during your mandate, and which one you regret that you couldn't achieve?
My biggest regret is certainly not having been able to present a united front to deal with the human tragedy in the Middle East. Since the beginning of my mandate, I wanted to be engaged on that. People told me, well, it's an impossible mission. Don't spend your time, your energy, your political capital on that. At the end, everything is quiet there. It's quiet. We believe it was quiet because we put the Palestinian issue in one side, and believing that making peace between the Arab world and the Israelis, it was enough. Well, it's not enough. The Palestinians cannot be taken apart. They are at the core of the problem. It will not be peace in the Middle East unless there is a peace between Israel and Palestine. And I am sorry to say, from this point of view, we haven't been successful enough. Biggest achievement, unity in front of the aggression against Ukraine. Because don't forget what is going on in Ukraine. A big neighbor, much more powerful of Ukraine, Russia, launched an invasion trying to take out the government democratically elected, put another one. And the Ukrainians are resisting, and we have been united on supporting them. This is an achievement, yes, that has to be counterbalanced by the fact that, happily, we haven't been so much united on trying to look for a solution for the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. But we are one of the most important donors, and to push for increasing support and to push for keeping the support to UNRWA and condemning the attacks against UNRWA and condemning the violence against the Palestinian people in the West Bank is something that the European Union has been able to do.
Thank you very much, Mr. Borrell. Thank you very much for your
Thank you.
For your time. Thank you very much.